What is up, everyone? Welcome back to Base Damage. Hope you're all having a wonderful day today, and happy Halloween. I hope it's going well for you. I figured post a spoopy deck profile today with some goblins, but I also figured I should probably, it's Halloween. People dressing up. I should have some kind of costume myself, but right now I'm a disembodied voice, so let's fix that. Da-da-da-da! I know it's just like a little reactive image, but this is a little PNG thing that was made by Guinea Kitty Productions. I'll put a link for her thing in the description. She's a really good friend, and I was like, hey, I need this for just for Discord stuff, like if I'm in like a Discord call with someone on stream. And she was like, oh, I can make something of your Final Fantasy XIV avatar, and I'm like, okay, I guess, sure. So, yeah, hey, here's a little thing to kind of show, hey, he's talking. Something a little better to have. So, I'll have to put a little sound effect in for, drum roll or some shit. But yeah, no, it looks really cool, and it took me a little bit to set up, but it's kind of nice. I'm going to be, trying to move it around as necessary in the deck profile itself. Because we do have some neat little things here for this deck. Let's get right into it. So obviously, like I said, first we have Goblins. In Overlord Volume 2, we had several Goblin cards, mainly focused on the Carne Village trait. And there were 1, 2, 3 different cards that have, you can run more copies of the card in the deck than is normally allowed. You can run more than 4. The level 3 says you can run up to 13, which we don't do. But the level 1 here, which my avatar is covering, is this one right here. I have to keep moving them back. And the level 0 right here, you can run any number of copies. But I have done deck profiles in the past with what people refer to as army decks. And this just felt right with a 6-6-6. Oh, I just realized that. with a 6 split across each of them. Well, it is Halloween, so I guess that number's somewhat appropriate. But yeah, so let's get right into it. Don't tell Goblin Slayer that we were here. But yeah, so let's start right off with the Goblin Elite Guards. It's a 3-2-8-5. He looks weak at first, but there are a couple cards we can use in here to make him a bit beefier. Once again, you can put up to 13 copies of him in the deck. But when he's placed on stage from your hand, or by the effect of Horn of the Goblin General, you may put the top card of your clock into your waiting room. The horn is this one in particular right here. Now, this in particular has some very interesting rulings we're going to have to cover in a little bit. So this one's probably going to get a bit lengthy in terms of explanation, but there is rulings for this, so I'll get to that when we do. The last effect he has is when this card attacks, if you have a Leader's Resolution Inri, which is this particular level 3 right here. She's kind of cute. If that is on your stage, you may pay the cost, which is 1 stock and 1 card from your hand. If you do, deal 1 damage to your opponent. Really cool. And then we go right to the Inri to kind of go ahead and immediately go into to explain the buff she does. She's a 3/2/6k. She gives all of your other Carne Village characters plus 2k power. Since Homeboy here works with her specifically, it's kind of fair to incorporate their effects kind of in the same. So while she's on field, he'll be a 10/5. So just to explain that real quick, so he'll get a nice buff. There's some other buffs in the deck, but we'll get to that in a second. When this is placed on stage from your hand, you may choose a Carne Village character in your waiting room, return it to your hand. I figure go ahead and explain now. Most of the deck, all the goblins, and all the Inris are all Carne Village. There's a handful of cards in here that are not Carne Village, but they still have synergy and work with the deck, so I'll explain those when we get to them. But when Papa Roach, Last Resort, is placed on your climax area, sorry about that, if you have 2 or more other Carne Village characters, you can pay 2 stock and discard 1 card. If you do, deal X damage to your opponent. X is equal to the number of other Goblin Elite Guards in your center stage. This little fucker. So you get to burn, you get to control, basically depending on how many you play, you get to kind of control how much burn you do. So that is going to be it for the 3s, but we have healers, we have buffers, kind of got the whole package here. Next, we have 3 copies of Sentiments Towards the Villagers Jugim. He's a 2/1/15, but as long as you have 2 or more other Carne Village characters, he gets plus 8k power. So he goes right up to a 9/5, and his second ability gives him actually 2 more abilities, but his second effect is makes him even buffier. When this is placed on stage from your hand, this gets the following abilities until the end of your opponent's next turn. So he only gets these for 1 turn, but it's all good. He served his purpose once that happens. First off, during your opponent's turn, this gets plus 2k. So he'll be a 11/5 on your opponent's turn with the Great Performance effect. And I'll put that up on screen right now from the Weiss Schwarz comprehensive rules, because it's not an effect that's like explained on this card. It's an effect that's been around for a minute. Great Performance, to summarize it, basically states as long as this Jugim is in the middle position of your center stage and is not reversed, it forces all of your opponent's characters to frontal attack just him, meaning they have to frontal him, they can't side attack him, and the characters on your left and right positions of your center stage will not get attacked. They'll be protected. And more than likely, because he's going to be like an 11/5, if you wanted to include some backups from the Overlord set, you could. I'd never really found any use for any in here personally, but you could, just saying. And then he's like even beefier, so. But yeah, so that's what Great Performance does. I figured just go ahead and give an explanation of that. It's one of those things where MTG has keywords like flying and first strike, but Weiss doesn't really have a lot of keywords. Great Performance is one of the few cards that, or one of the few things that is that. So that is it for the level 2s. Let's get to the level 1s. The first non-Carne Village is Grueling Battle Evil Eye. It's a 1/0/45. Even though she's not Carne Village, all of her effects still work with blue characters, which the entire deck is, minus 2 level 0s you're not going to fucking use for her effect, so it's all good. As long as you have another blue character, it also works with Raven Black, but ignore that. This gets 1500 power. And her climax combo, when this card's battle opponent becomes reversed, if Forgotten Feelings, which is this other pants trigger right here, which I didn't state before, the Last Resort was also pants trigger. If you have that and you have 2 or more other blue characters, look at up to 3 cards from the top of your deck. Choose up to 1 card amongst them, put into your hand, put the rest into your waiting room. So very easy to get that off. Like I said, all but 2 cards are blue. You know, it's all good. And because it lets you grab any card, you can grab the event for the Horn of the Goblin General to pull off some very fun shenanigans. So next, I was about to say lastly, and I realized, wait, there's 2 more level 1s. Next, we have Alone in the City Inri. It's a 1/0/2k. When this card is placed on stage from your hand, you may pay 1 and send a Horn of the Goblin General from your hand to your memory. If you do, you get to early play a copy of the level 2 Jugim from your hand to any position of your center stage. So you get to early play this big dude, but her effect, being able to put the Horn of the Goblin General into the memory, is kind of significant in case you fuck up. It's a way to kind of save yourself, but just saying. Also, when she becomes reversed in battle, if the battle opponent is cost 0 or lower, you may put that character on the bottom of your opponent's deck. Very fun removal there. Lastly, for the level 1s, is what I meant to say earlier, we have Goblin Heavy Infantry Corps. It's a 1/0/2k. This is one of the cards that states you can put any number of cards with the same card name as it into your deck. So you could run a full, 42 card deck of just this. Don't, but you could. If you have 2 or more other Carne Village characters, this gets plus 4k power. So he'll be a 1/0/6k, and he is a costless level 1 with a crit trigger. I did want to kind of emphasize that and state that. So I put 6 copies in. It seems to feel pretty good so far, and it works out, like I said, with the horn, and we'll get to that in a second here. I've mentioned this 5 times already, I realize, but there is significance to this event. So to start with the level 0s, we have Consistent Efforts Eins. It's a 0/0/25. When it's placed on stage from your hand, you can discard a card to grab back a copy of Horn of the Goblin General from your waiting room to your hand. So he was the one that gave Inri the horn in the anime, so it's just, it works there. But because we do want to be able to grab it and use the effect, it's very useful to have something a little extra to be able to grab it back. So then we have the Goblin Military Band, Drumline, if anybody's ever seen that movie. is a 002K. You can also put any number of cards with the same name as this in the deck, but we only put 6. When this card becomes reversed in battle, you may reveal up to 3 cards from the top of your deck. If you revealed 1 or more cards, choose up to 1 Carne Village character from among them, put it into your hand, put the rest into your waiting room, and then you have to discard 1 card. So something to keep in mind for that, like I said, there is 4, 6, and 2. So there's 8 non-Carne Village characters, and you also can't grab the events or climaxes, but because you do reveal 3, the effect should go off more often than not. So 6 copies of that. We have 2 copies of Petite Magic Caster Evil Eye. It's a 0015. When your character's trigger check reveals a climax with the pants trigger icon, that's what they all are in the deck, so there you go. If there's a climax in your climax area, you may pay the cost, which is discarding 1 card. If you do, choose 1 character in your waiting room and return it to your hand. So what you can do is if you trigger the pants and you don't need more getting stuck in your hand, you can purposely discard the climax that you added back from the trigger effect and then be able to salvage a character instead. So very nice there. It's also kind of a faux climax combo because you have to have a climax in play, but it works. Pants makes it so, climaxes get stuck in your hand anyway. Kind of like gold bars. Then it has a brainstorm of pay 1, rest this card, mill 4 for each climax, choose up to 1 character in your waiting room and return it to your hand. So salvaging brainstormer, but we do have another one. We have more copies of this Inri in the deck because you need Inri on the field to be able to cast the horn to begin with. So I wanted to include more copies of this one than the other. So 0015, moving forward hand in hand Inri. Has 2 effects. During your turn, if your hand has 5 or more cards, all of your characters in front of this card gain plus 500 power. And a brainstorm, pay 1, rest it, mill 4 for each climax, salvage a character. So you have a total of 6, but I wanted to include more copies of this because you do need Inri on the field for this. So yeah, here we go, getting into the Horn of the Goblin General. This is going to be a little bit more lengthy of an explanation, but I feel that it is worth it in the end. So Horn of the Goblin General is a level 1 cost blue event. So if you don't have a character with Inri in its card name, you can't play this from hand to begin with. So you do have to have an Inri on the field. Luckily, you have plenty for what we want to pull off. So when you cast it, you immediately put it into your memory. And that is significant because the other 2 effects immediately check the exact number of copies of this event that is in your memory. If you don't have the exact number, you don't get to cast the effects. So that's kind of the big ruling here that I wanted to talk about real quick. So because the first time you would play the card, it goes to your memory and the first effect is live because then it checks, it goes to your memory and then it checks, oh, there is exactly 1 Horn of the Goblin General that's in your memory. So that's what I mean. Basically stating because the second effect checks for exactly 2, you only ever get to pull this off twice. You only ever get to pull the event effect off twice in a single game, unless you could somehow move cards out of your memory. And I'm not going to try to do shenanigans like that. I'm just like, you know what? Let's just do this. So if you do have exactly 1, you get to discard 1 card and choose up to 3 copies of the level 0 military band or the level 1 infantry corps in your waiting room and put them on separate positions of your stage. So you get to summon 3 of these level 1s real quick, or if you don't have enough copies, you have the level 0s. But basically for this first effect, you have 12 cards that you can work with in terms of, you're more than likely going to have the targets in waiting room. The second effect is if you are level 3 and you have exactly 2 copies of the event in your memory, once again, you're going to cast 1 at say level 1. And then once you hit level 3, you're going to cast your second one. It will go to memory and you will have exactly 2 and be able to fulfill the rest of the effect. You may pay the cost, which is 2 stock and discarding 2 cards from your hand. If you do, choose up to 3 copies of the level 3 Goblin Elite Guard in your waiting room and put them on separate positions of your stage, which does end up saving you a hefty chunk of stock. You gotta think you're gonna end up paying 1 stock for the event. You're gonna pay an extra 2, so that's 3 stock right there. And you do have to discard 2 from hand, but if you have copies of this in hand, just pitch them and then you summon them, so it's whatever. But it does save you a significant amount of cost in terms of stock and being able to play the cards to begin with. Because if you just try to hard cast 3 of these, that's 6 stock. So you're paying half of that and a little bit from hand. But because you do also want stock for like her climax combo and everything, so it works. So you can get away with a lot of shenanigans with that. The end game is very stock heavy, but if you can pull it off with like maybe fewer copies of this or something, just it depends on what the game state is, so you have to kind of play it accordingly. So then we have so that's going to be it for the rest of the deck. We have 4 copies of Forgotten Feelings, the first Pants trigger for the Evil Eye, and 4 copies of Papa Roach for the level 3 Inri right here. And that is going to be it for the deck. Yeah, so this was very fun to test out. I learned a lot. Like I said, I found out about this ruling and I was like, oh, okay, that's how it's, interpreted and how it's supposed to function. So you're only ever supposed to be able to get off like this effect like twice in the game. I guess they don't want you to spam it, which is kind of understandable. People will take advantage of that kind of stuff where they can. So, but yeah, no, thank y'all very much for watching. Happy Halloween. I hope y'all liked the deck profile. I hope you like the little PngTuber reveal here. I'm still getting used to it and trying to probably get another one made at some point, see how it looks. But yeah, just figured something instead of just a disembodied voice all the time. Hope you like it. But y'all stay safe out there for Halloween, and we will see y'all on the flip side. Peace out for now.